All right, so this is our plan for the year. Now, a lot of you guys are coming to me straight from Algebra 1, right? How many of you guys are coming to me straight from Algebra 1? Let's see some hands. Nice. And how many of you guys did geometry last year? So we've got a little mix. This is new this year. You guys know it usually goes Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2. But this year they're thinking, hey, let's change things up for no reason. And they decided we're going to do Algebra 2 right after Algebra 1. It's honestly not a big deal. It doesn't really matter which way it goes, honestly. So we're going to be good. So for those of you guys that have had Algebra 1, which should be everybody in here, if you didn't, you need to talk to me. And if you didn't pass Algebra 1 last year, like you didn't get your credits, you probably want to talk to me too. That's not good. Because Algebra 2 is like Algebra 2. It's part 2, right? So if you don't know part 1, you're going to get in trouble. So, but I've color-coded these. I've got the blue ones here, linear functions, straight lines, right? Quadratics, parabolas, remember those? It's all review. It's all review. So you're going to see all the same stuff again. I doubt you'll learn more. I think it's just a great review. But it's important to review that because these are very important functions. So it's worth doing again. The green sections are things that you've seen before, but they have some new stuff to them now. So we'll go a little bit deeper. And then closer towards the end of the year, you're going to see some completely new stuff like radical functions, rational functions. And at the very bottom there, it's cut off a little bit on the screen, but you guys can see it on your notes. It's trig. You guys get a little sneak peek into trig. Why are they doing that? I don't know, but that's so we're going to do that. So that's the plan for the year. I've also got the months that we expect to have those things done by on there. All right, so what will you need for our class? You're going to want a 3-ring binder, 2 inches at least, something like this. This is actually probably like a 1.5 inch, but that would be fine too, honestly. You would need at least 9 tabbed dividers. Each of these tabs is going to match one of our chapters that we're doing. I don't go by the book too closely, our textbook. So you're going to need a resource that does match what we're doing in class, and that's your notes. So you're creating your own textbook as you go, basically. So you want to have one. You want to make it nice. I'm going to pass this one around. This one that I'm passing around is from last year. She was a student, was very neat. She did a great job, so I think hers is a good example to show. And yeah, she has all the tab dividers in there and everything. You guys can kind of get an idea of what a 100% would look like on there. They're graded based on neatness, organization, and completeness. But that's from pre-calculus. That's not Algebra 2, but it doesn't really matter. The point is I just want you to kind of see the setup. Okay. Calculators, I have some. And so you don't need to buy one, and you have your cell phones, right? So there's really no need to have a calculator unless you think you're going to want one on a test. And in some cases, you do need them on a test because you can't use cell phones on tests. So you might want to have your own personal scientific calculator. They're about $10. Okay. You don't need a graphing calculator. You can ignore that. I put that note in there for my pre-calculus students. You can get one. They can do some pretty neat stuff, but it's a lot of money. So unless you really plan on doing something with it, I wouldn't bother. So let's go ahead and jump up here to the slide that talks about grading here a little bit. I think you guys have some blanks to fill in there. You didn't get that little note thingy? There you go. You don't have a sister from the past that used to come into you, Natalie? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is it not Emma? No? Oh, okay. Who is it? Samantha. You reminded me of one of my old students. Sometimes I could tell by seeing, but this time I was let down. I don't think I know Samantha. All right, so you guys can kind of see what how you're graded here. Tests and quizzes are 40 and 30. The rest are 15, 10, and 5. The top two make up what I call the knowledge grades. They show me how much you know. The bottom ones are really just you working for it, okay? So you don't have to be correct when you turn in your homework. It just has to show me that you were trying it. Notes, same thing. I don't grade them for accuracy. I just make sure you're doing it. Hopefully your notes are accurate. That would be kind of not helpful if they weren't. Participation points, which I'll talk about later, same thing. You don't have to be right when you participate. You just have to be participating. That's what I call the effort grade. And the reason I've gotten this breakdown like this, 70% for knowledge and 30% for effort, is because although your grade really should reflect how much you know, most of all, not everybody's great at tests and not everybody likes math a whole lot. And so I want to make sure everybody at least has a chance to pass. So I'll demonstrate how pretty much everybody should be able to pass in here. Let's say that you're not so great at tests or quizzes, you know. I have to fix my pen, it's a little bit off. So tests and quizzes make up about 70% of your grade, but let's say you get an F on all of them on average, like 50%. Okay? We don't like that. And you want to do as good as you can, and don't settle for that if you don't have to. But let's just say that you're doing your best and that's what you pulled off. But you do work really hard, so you get 100% of your effort grade. Effort's 30%, so if you multiply that by 1, you get all 30. So here you're only getting 50% of the 70, and you're getting 100% of the 30. 50% of 70 is 35. And 100% of 30 is 30, so that makes 65, which is a passing grade of a D. And honestly, with extra credit and test redos, those students usually end up getting about a C at least. So like if you're really bad at tests and math is scary to you, you can walk out of here with a C. I know that's not the best grade. You know, maybe you want higher, and you can. There's test redos, but at least that way you can get your credit, okay? So that's why it's set up that way. You guys got any questions? By the way, tomorrow we're going to do two things. Tomorrow's a fun day, if you will. The beginning of class, we're gonna get into groups and we're gonna share our math memes. So you want to have those printed and ready to go by tomorrow, and I'll explain how to do that later. But we'll also play a game of Jeopardy, and the Jeopardy game is going to be based on this stuff that we're talking about today. So bring these notes with you. Yeah.
What's it called? You posted something on Google Classroom, right?
Maybe. You know the math meme? Yeah, it's there.
Do we need to turn that in tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll show you how to do it. All right. So there's that. Let's talk about tests a little bit. Once every 3 weeks or so. I gave you a study guide beforehand. This is kind of weird. I give tests in 3 parts over 2 days. Okay. Part 1 is on the first day. Parts 2 and 3 are on the second day. So what's up with that? So let's say that we're taking a Unit 2 test, right? We're taking a test on quadratics. Well, the first day you're gonna take your test on quadratics. That's what we've been talking about for 3 weeks. But after that, you're gonna have a review test too. Okay, review meaning anything from before. I do like to keep the old stuff fresh. Once again, I'll give you a study guide for that. So it's not like, oh my gosh, I got to remember everything from, well, you should, but I'll give you a study guide so you know exactly what I'm looking for. So it'll be like 10 questions you have to be ready for to review. Another thing I'll do is I'll probably throw like a word problem at you guys. One that requires a little bit of work, a little bit of thought. And yes, those ones are on purpose hard. They're meant to make you think a little bit. It's not like, oh, Bailey did one just like this, so just let me find one like that. My notes are good. It's more like, huh? I got to think about this now. It's meant to make you think with numbers, which I think is what math is really all about. So I like to throw those in there. But here's the good news. Even though that may sound a little bit scary, first of all, it's only about 5% of the overall test grade. So there's, hopefully that de-escalates your blood pressure. The other thing is that after about 10 minutes of reading the problem, you actually get to go and discuss with anybody you want to in the classroom about how they're going to solve it. At that time, you're not allowed to write or take notes or anything, but you do get to discuss. And then after that, you go back to your desk and then you put your final thoughts on paper, and you're thinking about 30 minutes total. So I like this because it makes you think with numbers, it challenges you, And it also encourages cooperation and group work, which I think is all very good for learning. So that'll be the third part of your test. So day 1, regular test. Day 2, review and word problem. Okay, so that's kind of how our test will go in general. So anytime you take a test, you can use notes if you want to, but that does cap your grade at an 80%. You can also retake tests, but that also caps your grade at 80%. So if you took a test, you failed it, you want to try again, that's fine, but you can't go past a B with a retake. However, the good news is with retakes is that you're allowed to use notes with no extra penalties. So you're still just capped at an 80. It's not like you get 2 penalties. All right, quizzes. And like I said, if you guys have questions, just raise your hand and stop me, okay? Quizzes are like once a week, Wednesdays. Covers the stuff from the previous week. So about once a week. Not this week, but probably starting next week. And the same thing applies to quizzes as tests, like you can redo them or use notes with the 80 cap. I do make participation a part of your grade. It's really just kind of meant to be a way to kind of keep you guys motivated throughout the class and also get some extra credit if you want some. So I'll tell you how that's graded. First of all, you get 4 points a day for just showing up in class. That gives you a B, so to speak. But to get 100%, you need 5. Okay, so you always got to get a little bit extra if you want that A. How do you get extra points? Well, anytime you answer a question, voluntary or not, you get a point. Once again, that doesn't have to be right. Helping other people out, that gets you 2 points. I really like to see you helping each other out. Going to after-school tutoring, that gets you some credit. Helping me out with anything like passing out papers, I really appreciate that. You can lose points, though, if you're not on task, okay? You can also get a point, by the way, if you catch me making any sort of math mistakes, because that does happen. And the cool thing about participation is that you can actually get more than 100%. So you can get extra points to the point where you actually add about 2.5% overall onto your grade. Okay? They don't go into the grade book, though, until the end of the quarter. So you won't see them until then, but you are welcome to ask me, hey, how am I doing? And I'll show you what you got. Okay. Any questions there? Okay. Homework, I've already showed you that. It's over there on the wall. Notebook, we already talked about that. I collect those notebooks on the day of the test. So after we have our first test on that day, I'll say, okay, turn in your notebooks. I'll remind you the day before, of course. But basically, you should already have all the notes. You're just putting them in there and turning in the notebook. That's it. So long as it's neat, organized, and complete, you're in good shape. It'll be 100%. It's an easy grade. What about absences and late work? Well, if you were here but you didn't turn it in on time, that's considered late work, and I don't take that. I mean, unless you had some major emergency at home, I don't take late work. But if you're absent, of course, you can turn it in. I'll give you at least 1 day to turn in, or more, depending on how many days you were gone. Anytime you are gone, you can find everything on Google Classroom. Like I said, I took a video of the lesson. You can watch the whole lesson online. The worksheets will be there, the homework, the notes, everything's there. So it's like you wouldn't even miss class. So. Missing assignments due to unexcused absences may not be permitted to be made up. So now that's not for sure or always, but let's just say that you've missed like 10 classes and all of those are unexcused. After a while, it's possible that I won't accept late work from you with A's. You have to have excused absence. Okay, so you got to make sure that you're being absent for a legitimate reason in order for me to take work. I don't really look at it honestly unless it's a problem. Just saying. That's about it. Restroom. I ask only one person at a time, hopefully 5 to 10 minutes. I ask you to put your name and the time on that little whiteboard over there above the pencil sharpener when you go. That way I know where you are if there's an emergency or if I need you. Yeah?
I was looking at the syllabus and we didn't go over for asking for a test or quiz.
I didn't go over what?
If we were asking for a test or quiz.
Oh, okay.
It's on point.
Got you. Oh, thank you for pointing that out. I appreciate it. So if you're absent for a test or a quiz, it's kind of hard to see on here. But basically, my goal, doesn't always turn out this way, but my goal is I would give you it right when you got back the next day. Okay, so fill in the blank in whatever way makes sense there, but my goal would be that if you were gone on the day of a test, as soon as you got back, I'd have you make it up that day. But honestly, even though that's my goal, I get so busy I think about it. So really, if you are gone, make sure that you plan to tell me, hey, I wasn't here, I need to do that. Because I may not catch it, and then you don't want 3 weeks to go by before you go, oh, I got to do that test, and that's really hard. So try to do it as soon as possible, and I'll try to get you guys to do it right when you return. Okay. Rules, you guys know this stuff. That's obvious. Let's talk about cell phones and tardies. Those are the two big issues that every teacher does a little bit differently. So I want to let you guys know how I do it. Cell phones. If I get the impression it's affecting your ability to learn, I'll probably harass you. If I don't have that impression, then I'd leave you alone. It may seem like I'm being unfair. So like, let's say Heidi's on her phone and says, Kayla. I come over here and I yell at Kayla. But Heidi don't say anything. So that means that I like Heidi, right? And I hate Kayla. Not really. What you don't realize is that Heidi's got an A in the class already, and she's done with the work I gave her, but Kayla's not. Right? So that would be the issue. Is I don't really draw black and white rules there because I think it's a very confusing issue. But I will say that if I get the impression it's hurting your ability to learn, I might intervene a little bit. Okay. So I'm kind of loose on that, but just make sure that you're doing your work. Fine. Tardiness. For you guys, I can ignore a tardy 1 minute past the late bell. I don't care. Unless it's like every day, then I might have to start marking you tardy. But for the most part, kind of let it go. Consequences. Once again, you guys can read that. Pretty self-explanatory stuff. So you guys got any questions for me? Does it sound like we're going to have fun this year? Yeah. Sure thing. Homework one. There it is. The first thing I want to do is I want to talk about the math meme homework, and then after that I want to talk about the math homework. Okay? So let's go ahead and start with the math meme homework. So you guys are going to need to access your Google Classroom. If you don't have access to that, then I'm going to help you out right now with that. Let me delete all this stuff here. All right, so the Google Classroom code is right here. It says VZNRND. So if you aren't already on Google Classroom, you might want to write that down because that's where you're going to get your homework for tonight. VZNRND. So you go on your Google Classroom site, add class if you need to, and type in that code and you should be good. Okay. But most of you guys already have that preloaded for you. It should already be good. But in case you got added in late or something, and counselors haven't got a chance to update it, there you go. Now another thing I like to do is I like to use Remind. If you guys don't know what Remind is, I'll tell you that right now. Remind is basically, it's kind of like your ability to text communicate with me via your cell phone, but without me knowing your personal cell phone number. So if you guys type in the phone number spot 81010 and text this message, it will hook you up to my Remind. That's a good thing to use because I can remind you about tests. I can tell you if there's an issue with the homework. Because, like I said, I make a lot of my own stuff, and if there's a mistake, I can say, oh, watch out, don't do number 3, that was a mistake, skip it. Another cool thing is if you get stuck on a homework problem, you can text me the question, I'll work it out and text you a picture back, and you can have the answer. So we can work together that way if you need to. Yeah.
Can we text you that right now?
Yeah, do it right now. Go for it. It just takes like 2 seconds. So I'll leave that up there for a minute, and then we're going to move on to the next thing. So that's part of your homework. The other part of our homework is your 3-ring binder, right? Remind and Google Classroom. Those 3 are pretty easy. The math meme is what I'm going to talk about next.
Do we have to put the accent?
I think so.
Yeah.
The math meme. That one's due tomorrow. So what you're going to do is you're going to go on your Google Classroom. Tonight. You actually don't need to, but it's helpful to do this. Go on your Google Classroom. Click on the math meme, and there's two things there. One is a My Math meme, and the other one's a template for you to use. So a math meme is just basically, that's what I'm calling it. It's just a way for me to kind of get to know you as a person and not just as a student, but also as a student. So I've got a picture here of my family and my numbers here. I've got my favorite quotes, my interests, my future goals. You guys are going to do all that too. Give me a paragraph about yourself. I Google, look for a math meme that you like. There's a lot of funny ones. Just make sure they're school appropriate. I had a few good laughs when I was looking, but some of them probably shouldn't be put up on my walls because these are going to go up on my walls. So make sure it's school appropriate. And then we have me and math. Tell me about your relationship with mathematics, and then decorate the background. So that's the sample. If you want to look at and read about me a little bit, I'll give you a little more detail about mine tomorrow when we share them out. For now, I'm just showing you what it should look like. But there's also a template, so you guys should be able to open that, and you should be able to type in your stuff and cut and paste pictures in and stuff like that. Should be nice and easy. But if you're having technology issues, you can just do one by hand. You don't have to do it electronically, okay? But I do want you to print out a physical copy. A lot of you guys might be used to Google Classroom, submitting things to your teacher through the electronic system. That's not how I'm taking it. I'm taking it as a physical copy because we're going to share it in groups tomorrow, and also because I want them on my wall. So that's the math meme homework. You guys got any questions for me there? All right. Well, we're kind of low on time, but I'm still going to try to do some of that math homework with you real quick because I don't know how much time we'll have to talk about it tomorrow. So get out that math worksheet real quick that I printed for you. And I'll kind of show you how to do these. There's a lot here. So I wanted to give it to you today. I know you already have the math meme homework, but I wanted to give it to you today just in case you want to get a little head start because it's going to be due on Wednesday. So you have 2 days to knock this out. And the purpose of this is just to kind of give you an overview of all the different types of functions we're going to look at this year. Functions are different types of equations and the graphs that they make. Okay. So let's take a look at one you guys are familiar with. You guys remember what this guy's called here? It has an exponent of 2. That's actually a main characteristic, but that's not what it's called. It's not an exponential. Starts with a Q. It's a quadratic. So anytime you have an x with a power of 2, that's what we call a quadratic. You guys remember what kind of shape those make? What do they make? Parabola. They make that U shape, right? So this assignment is showing you a bunch of different types of functions. A quadratic is one of them. And you're going to find the numbers and graph it so you'll have the equation and a picture of what that looks like. And it's basically our whole year in a snapshot of all the different types of functions we're going to talk about. So this is a great thing once you have it done to keep in the front of your notebook. So let's do this one together. Y equals x squared. What I've done is I've given you some x values. So what you're going to do is you're going to plug those x values in. You don't have to show your work, okay? You could do this mentally, but I'm going to show my work for this one. I'm going to plug in -3 for the x. Now what is -3 to the second power? It's 9. What am I going to plug in next? -2. If I plug in -2, what would I get? And you're just going to keep going. If I plug in -1, what would I get? If I plug in -1, I get 1. If you guys don't mind, I'll skip my work for the rest of them. If I plug in 0, you get 0. If you plug in 1, you get 1. If you plug in 2, you get 4. If you plug in 3, you get 9. Okay? Now we're going to graph it. Each one of these is a point, like -3, 9, right? So we're going to graph that. Am I going too fast? Okay. So I'm going to go left 3, up 9. I'm going to put a dot. The next one, what's my next point? -2, 4, good. So I'm going to go left 2, up 4.
Hold up. For the one on top and left 3 up 9.
That's correct. How about this one? What's the next point going to be?
Maybe left 1 up 1.
So left 1, up 1. Next point.
0.
And I'm just going to go ahead and continue from here. And that's the shape you guys were expecting, isn't it?
Yeah.
You don't have to do the domain and range, okay? Let's do Wednesday.
Hey, I'll teach because in March I think I'm going to become a freshman, and I didn't take took 3 algebra, and I took the state test, I almost had a 3, like a like 2, and then we took another test, but I got like a higher score, I don't know, I'm not sure exactly what test it was, but it was a test, I got a higher score on that, so I don't know if I should pass or not. I didn't take another one.
Let me turn off my recorder really quick.